Okay, I am so glad that we have made it to day 11, because day 11 is such an important day. It's one of those days that you didn't realize your soul needed so much until it happened. You didn't realize that day 11 is something that you've been craving, but not consciously. Day 11 is the day that we get back on the horse. Day 11 is the day where we get back on the drum beat. It's where we get back to the breath. It's the day that we decide to step back into the flow. And it's really important to have these days that call you to get back up and to keep moving forward. Because every now and then we're going to have a day 10 where we're going to realize that we've repeated a pattern of procrastination, where we realize that we said we were getting back to work, but then we chose to fall asleep again. And of course, sometimes we need that sleep, sometimes we need that rest. I don't think that there is anything negative or unhelpful to be seen in our need for sleep. Whether that's physically or esoterically. I know we're all trying to wake up a little more, but there must be some importance to our sleeping. There must be something sacred in that, because we only ever experience the sacred. So there must be something profound in our sleeping. And so on day 11, we see the sacredness in our sleeping and begin to release it with love, because we are instead rejoicing right now in our awakening. So day 11 is going to push you. It's going to call you to be back at work if you have chosen to be back at work. And it's going to provide you the opportunity to choose how to be while you're at work, while you're here doing what you need to do. And it's going to call you to be productive. And you're really going to ponder that for a while, because your repetition of laziness has, if only because it became a second time, if only because for a moment you chose the old way over the chosen way. If only because of those small moments. Day 11 is going to force you to look a bit more clearly at the definitive choice you have set before you. Day 11 is going to put you directly in that fork in the road and show you where you are in all this. And it's going to say that you have a choice. It's going to make that option as big as possible for you, so that you can see that either way is open to you, and you can fall back into your old patterns, and you can continue putting the work off, and you can go back to sleep, or you can do the work that you're here to do. You can turn in a different direction, and you can wake up a little bit more. And I don't think we need to be taking that moment and projecting into it and creating a future for it, because I think sometimes we jump over that moment too quickly. That moment where we are standing before all of our options and have yet to choose one. And I think we should all begin to see ourselves in that situation a bit more often, because I think that's what we're offered moment by moment. Here we are before this option and that option, and we can just stay there and experience that space and be with that space, and we can stay there and begin to notice a bit more detail of each path. We can look out upon all of the horizons that are available to us to see which one feels more right to us, which one looks a bit more beautiful, which one sounds a bit more like the truth of the world that I want to live in. Here are my options. Here's how I can move forward. Which one is best for me right now? Which do I want to choose? These are great questions to ask. These are wonderful questions to ask, because I think the more we begin to stay in that space and experience that space and ask ourselves these direction-oriented questions a bit more in that space, I think when we do that more, we're going to start to become a wiser and deeper community. But I also think we have to do this as much as possible without our judgments. I think we need to have a great sense of compassion for the suffering of that space, because we all know that when the options are set before us and we are called to make a decision, that sometimes there's some pain involved in that. And so we need to have compassion for people and those of us in that space, compassion for the pains that might be perceived there. We need to be real about it. And we need to have compassion for the people who choose what we would think to be the wrong path, or who would choose the sleeping over the waking, because we miss out on a whole lot of that other person's potential if we make them wrong for making their own choices. And I think we'll find this type of thinking to be very silly if we turn the contemplation around and place it correctly, and thus contemplate only the self. Because I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, there were times where maybe we took no time to stand before all our options and choose one with conviction and surrender and loyalty. Sometimes we just blew right through that moment and kept on going. We didn't even realize there was another path we could have taken. And I know some of us have, with great gusto and knowingness, chosen the wrong path for ourselves, as if to test ourselves or to prove ourselves to the world. We knew it was wrong, we knew it wasn't right, but watch me get through it. Or I'm choosing this one just because, just to spite you. Sometimes we did that, right? And we walked on down the same path. And we know what that path felt like, right? We remember that. We know that pain. And then we know, of course, hopefully the pain of recognizing that you had chosen the wrong path and perhaps are still on the right path. And we know that hurt. And so our compassion from those places of loving kindness, yet awareness and full awareness of that space in life, our compassions should extend outward into that space for the people who are there, right? And we should not condemn them for their past choices. We should encourage them in their present choices and motivate them into their future choices. But the only way we can truly do that is by aligning ourselves to our own present choices and projecting ourselves into our own future choices. The only way we can do that, the only way we can help bring a person into that power, is by showing them that they can survive in that power. And so we have to do that for ourselves. We have to look upon ourselves with that loving kindness and compassion. We have to encourage ourselves and support ourselves. We have to be the power for ourselves every now and then, just to show the world that we can live in our power and be our power and use our power and be okay. And I think so much of what we assume to be wrong with power is all a silly story created by our fear. That can only happen if we first ascribe to the idea that our power is our own, because it's not. Our power is not our own. We do not own our power. I think the truth we need to see is that power belongs to the community. Power belongs to the we, and power belongs to the love that is meant to be shared and held and imagined and written about and contemplated. That's where the true power is. And when we are living in our power, fully embracing and being and using our power, we are in fact doing nothing more than aligning to God, aligning to the higher self and the source. All we are doing is, in fact, getting out of the way so the flow can happen, so the miracle can be born. We're just taking the block, which is the self, and just moving it aside so that we create and become the flow. And so to live in and be and use our own power means only to become an integral part of the flow. It means only to become the promise of continued flow. It means seeing the sacredness in what you are doing and embracing that and pulling that down. And so in day 11, I think we begin to realize that there's a lot of journey in our awakening. And we're going to realize that we're walking with God. We're going to realize that the power is on our side. The love is on our side. The world is on our side. We're going to see that a little more. We're going to feel that a little more on day 11. Because we're going to be able to look at ourselves with clarity and compassion and see the laziness that is upon us, that was upon us, and know that we are coming out of it. And so we walk on with God, and we realize that we're walking with God, that we have partnered with Spirit in this lifetime. And even though the journey can feel exhausting and heavy, and even though we can thirst and we can hunger, and even though we can fear, and even though we get overwhelmed by the length of our journey and the hardships of our journey, we are not alone in that journey. And we begin to see that even if we, in our complete and total moments of weakness, stumble and fall and give up along the path and think that we cannot go on and think that we have dropped the ball and surrendered to that, we still cannot fail. On day 11, we begin to realize that when those moments happen and we're half naked, afraid and alone, parched in the desert, starving and tired and exhausted and hot and hopeless and devoid of inspiration and lacking all morale, and we just fall and give up in the middle of nowhere. In that moment, God comes and picks you up and carries you, because sometimes God's not asking us nor commanding us to walk. Sometimes God is just saying, get there. Get there, get there, get there. You're getting there. I am bringing you there. I am bringing you there.